Hi, and welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy. The goal of this podcast is to demystify therapy, what can happen in therapy, and the wide array of conversations you can have in and about therapy. Through personal experiences, guests will talk about therapy, their experiences with it, and how psychology and therapy are present in many places in their lives. With lots of authenticity and a touch of humor, here is your host, Steve Bisson.
Thank you, and I really need to find a catchphrase here, but I don't have one yet. So welcome to episode 97 of Finding Your Way Through Therapy. If you haven't listened to episode 96 yet, please go and listen because it's an update on the flight that I had in March and a couple of things that happened and how I'm feeling about it. It came from the heart, so I hope you do enjoy it. But episode 97 will be with a new guest that I've never had, Pavel Ythjall. I hope I get it right. It's Ythjall or Ythjall. I hope I get it right, but we will know from the interview. Pavel was referred to me from the Psychcraft Network. Lisa Mustard in particular had spoken highly of him. I did listen to him on there and also Gordon Brewer's episode. So please go out and check that out if you want to. But I think my interview is also very good. Pavel is someone who, after a year of marriage, he found himself staring at the eyes of a neurosurgeon who told him point blank, your wife will be paralyzed from neck down for life. Obviously, there's an incident that occurred. At the time, Pavel had also broken his neck. His vertebrae were supported by a halo screwed directly into his skull. It was a tragic accident that happened on a cold December, cold for a California night, and that changed his life forever. But I want him to say the story. So here is Pavel. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 97 of Finding Your Way Through Therapy. It's also on YouTube. You can go check it out. But today I have a guest that was recommended to me by, among other people, Lisa Mustard, Gordon Brewer. I heard both interviews, and I'll have an announcement very soon in regards to all that, but I'm just going to keep that for now. But I heard his story. I'm like, I got to have him on. Just an amazing story. And I'm not trying to plug anything else, but a great human being here and a guy who's been through the trials and tribulations. And for me, part of finding your way through therapy sometimes is exactly that, talking about our trials and tribulations. So I want to pronounce his name right, so I'm going to do my best. Pavel Ythjall.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I'm trying to do it because, as a fellow immigrant from Canada and people butchering my last name, I want to make sure I don't butcher your last name. But Pavel, welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy.
Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me on.
Your story is an amazing one. Like I said, I've listened to it on about 3 podcasts. I mentioned those 2 for a specific reason. You'll figure it out next week, guys. But I would like you to introduce yourself because I think it's not only your story, but as a human being, you're just a remarkable human being. So I would love you to introduce yourself to my audience.
Thank you, Steve. Well, as you, I'm a fellow immigrant. So I'm from Sweden, and I was into photography and always dreamt of Hollywood. Always dreamt of coming to America and make it big, literally. I fought hard and I bled hard, and I came over to America, and I actually did make it. So I did make it big. And I was in my prime. I was shooting for AMI, for Flex, Muscle and Fitness, Hers, all the big muscle magazines, making good money, meeting the right people, having a lot of fun, driving my Range Rover, having my Rolex watch. Kat was an immigrant from Belize. So my wife, she grew up in Belize under really, really harsh circumstances. She was raped multiple times by her mom's boyfriends. She got adopted, and she was raped by adoptive family. She came back to Belize. Long story short, she ended up in the American Air Force. She worked herself up to be a major. So she started in a hut in Belize and literally worked herself up to be a major in the American Air Force. So she was on the top of her world. She was also a triathlete. So she was swimming, she was cycling, she was biking, she was doing century bike rides, just like a top performer, athletic and intellectual. So we were both on the top of the world. What we had was this enormous emptiness inside. Like I had everything, right? All the material things. I had the fame, I had the awe from people, but I just felt so empty. Like I had this longing, and she felt the same. And what really made us glued together was this longing for a home, for safety. Like we I came from sort of a broken home, and her background was terrible, right? So I guess we put all our efforts into making ourselves successful and hoping that would in some way protect us, but it wasn't doing anything for us. So long story short, we met at a fitness party on a rooftop, and immediately, like, we found each other. Like, that first night, she sat on my lap, and I remember all I did was caressing her hair. I didn't try to kiss her, didn't try to grope her, she sat on my lap, and I just caressed her hair, and she said, that's what got her. It was just the most beautiful thing. And we immediately found a home. Fast forward a year and a half. We date, we become a couple, we get married, we bring all our family, all our friends to Belize. So like a destination wedding. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars because we have it. We're successful. It's a beautiful event. And now we have everything. We have the money, we have the fame, we have the awe, we have the home, we have the security. Like, life is perfect, perfect. And then one night, 7 years ago in December, we're going to Laguna Beach to a friend's Christmas party. We were in my Range Rover, a big sturdy car. And we're driving up on the 405, which is an infamous highway here in Los Angeles with six lanes. We're driving, and my wife is reaching over to put on some Christmas tunes just to make it a festive drive there. And something says, boom, boom. And my car just starts swerving. And it just starts swerving to the right. So what I think happened is that a tire blew. It swerves, it hits one of the big street signs. It says Laguna Beach, hits it. The car starts flipping, so it rolls 4 times. I remember, the last thing I remember was my head went like this into the windshield, and I remember thinking, this is going to hurt. And that's when I broke my neck. After a little while, when the dust settles, we wake up. I have a broken neck, but I don't know that. And my wife says, Pavel, go get help. I've broken my arms. But she hadn't broken her arms. She had broken her neck instantly on impact.
Ugh.
But since she couldn't move, she thought she had broken her arms. So that's the short story in terms of how we were successful, how we met, and how it all came apart.
Well, that's one of the things. I'll correct you, and maybe I'm too much of a therapist here, so you can stop me. You're still successful. So I just want to make sure I said that, because that's exactly what I would say to any human being. Your success didn't go away. However, a lot of challenges, obviously, right after that. Can you describe a little more about all that? Because that's, I was listening. Yeah. I heard this story 4 times now. And every time I go, and you heard me. And every time I hear it's that way. So all the challenges, everything else that goes with that. Can you tell me more about that?
I'll pick select pieces here. I crawled out of the car and actually fell on my head, and I should have died right then and there. But somehow the adrenaline just kept me going. What I found out later was that my neck was broken and all the ligaments were off. So my head was just like a bobblehead. It was just being attached just by a little ligament. I couldn't find my phone, and I didn't understand what a phone looked like. And I screamed to my wife. I said, I can't find my phone. And it was just a blur. It was just like in those war movies when the camera goes like this and everything is blurry. It was exactly the same feeling. And I felt myself dying. I knew, and I don't know how to describe it, but when you're about to die, you just trust me on it. So I knew time was precious. And Kat, who was an Air Force major, kept her cool and said, Pavel, go get help. Pavel, go get help. And I walked out on the 6-lane highway, waving my hands, and no one stopped. And at that point, I just chose to die for Kat. So instead of walking on the side, I walked out on the highway, on the 1st lane. And cars were swerving around me, but no one stopped. I walked back on the side of the road, and a vagabond came and approached me. He said, do you need help? I said, yes, call 911. I don't know if that vagabond was a homeless person or if it was a so-called third person I've read about in therapeutic events that sort of appears when you're super stressed, or if it was a divine intervention. Maybe it was all 3. But shortly thereafter, I heard the sirens and we were shuffled into the ambulance. They had to use sauce and stuff to get Kat out. And then we came into the the emergency room. I want to mention the one most important moment when I was in the emergency room was they wheeled me in and I saw Kat in the background. And Dr. Farron, our neurosurgeon, bent her head over me. So I'm laying down and she comes over me and she said, your wife's going to be paralyzed for life. Stay strong for her. And that, her putting that on me saved me. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself because God knows I felt sorry for myself because I saw all my dreams fade away, like my photography career, my film career, all that is gone. So I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. I only had time to gain strength for my wife. So from that moment on, I repeated, I have to be strong for Kat. I have to be strong for Kat for 3 days and 3 nights. I never stopped. Never. Just kept on repeating like David Goggins, totally crazy. But I think that just programmed me to be strong. And I did heal up in record time. So that's the start of the event.
Well, you talk about, was it a vagabond? Was it a homeless person? Was it a third party? I've heard of that. I've had another guest on who had a near-death experience twice. And I had another person who had 2 near-death experiences. It's not uncommon to have that when you have a near-death experience. And it's hard to put in words. I think that's the hard part, is that most people don't get it. And I personally will tell you what I said to other people. I don't want to get it in the sense that I want to understand you, but I don't want to know what it feels like, because that's not something I want to live through. So I give you a lot of credit going through that. When you are lying there with a broken neck and you're thinking about, I got to be strong. I got to be strong for Kat. I got to be strong for Kat. Is it only for her, or were you able to do it for yourself also?
No, at that point, it's only love, Steve. It's like here's the real truth is I thought still that she had broken her arms, like before the doctor came up to me. So I thought everything will be cool. I can move my arms and legs. I know I've broken your neck, but we'll be fine. Like, in some sense, we will be fine. But then when she came up to me and said, your wife's going to be paralyzed, neck down for life. She said, based on what I've seen, based on my experience, and then it was just love. It was like, damn, I have to be strong for her because no one deserves that. But it's a testament to her. It's a testament to how much she improved me as a human being, because she made me adventurous. She got me a home. She made me feel safe. And that's why the English word is reciprocal.
Yes.
Yeah. It was just the right thing to do. Like that was the thing to do because I owed her. Like she had made me a better person before, and I owed her that. And I would owe that to any human being, but especially my wife.
Wow. I don't think everyone has that strength though, Pavel. I got to be honest with you.
Well, not everyone has Kat as their wife either.
Well, maybe it'd be interesting to tell me more about Kat, because she sounds like an incredible human being. And again, for me, her success of surviving everything she went through in Belize and where she is today, to me, she's still successful. I know that people will not necessarily agree with me. I don't care if people agree with me. Can you tell me more about Kat? Because I want to hear more about you, but now you made me intrigued about Kat.
So thank you for asking. I'll cut to the end right now first, and I'll go back. She is currently working as an exec for Space Force. So she's full-time working for Space Force. She works for a general, and she takes care of all her meetings and all of her team's meetings, and she's an active part of that team. So she does
still
that.
Serving our country.
Still serving our country, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
I know she doesn't know me, but I thank her for her service. I don't wait till Veterans Day to say that. I say it every time I can. So thank you. Tell her thank you for her service. I appreciate it.
I will, Steve. Thank you. So she sits with a stick in her mouth, which is sort of like a pen, and then that's her one finger, as we call it. And she has a government computer with a VPN and all that security stuff. And she has an iPad, also government, and then she has her phone. And with her stick and her voice, she manages this team. And this is a team that's based in America and Great Britain. As you know, we have a war, or but we're involved in a war in Ukraine. And she handles all that with her stick and her voice, which is pretty impressive. And she's also educating herself to therapist. So she's doing her practicums to be a family therapist. So that's how impressive she is. And going back, when she grew up in a family with two other siblings, and her mom had to work really hard just to make a living. And her mom often beat her, almost got beaten to death. And as I told her, she was raped multiple times by multiple perpetrators. So I can only guess how worthless she felt and how little she felt. And I know she's told me that everything I ever got was from tourists. Tourists felt so sorry for me that they gave me stuff. So that's how I became her. That's her words. That's how I became a giving person. Like, I learned the value of giving from tourists in Belize 40 years ago. Somehow she connected the giving with connections with people, because that's what she's so good at. She has an enormous social network, and that's
Right.
what she gave me. She gave me the value of seeing people, because I was this typical A-type personality, come from Sweden to Hollywood, doing really well and treating people kindly, but I wasn't connecting with them. I wasn't using them or anything, but I wasn't connecting. There was no real deep connection at all. Not like we're having here.
Right.
So, but she taught me to see people. She told me, Pavel, ask them how they're doing. Ask them how their job is. Ask them how their day is. Talk to them. That's why I told myself I have to be strong for Kat, because that is life. Like, that is the only thing that fucking matters now. It's the connections with people. The rest is just bullshit. It just took an accident for me to realize. So, yeah.
Well, I don't think just an accident, but I think that what you described as your emptiness, you got that with Kat. I'm sure what you connected with her. I think that what I remind myself, and this is the one thing I'm happy about in my life, is that, on my deathbed, most people in their deathbed, I wish I was closer to my family. I wish I gave more. I wish I did. I won't have that regret as a therapist. And to me, that's something that I call it also my Buddhist principles,
Right.
because that really is another guiding force in my life. Do you have any guiding forces other than connectiveness for you? Because I think that's important. Sweden is a great country. My experience with Swedish people is sometimes they can be cold towards each other at times. And if I'm crossing a line here, you tell me to shut up, and I'm fine with that. But I feel like my experience with Swedish people has been, it's fairly cold. Within a family, they're okay. But outside the family, it's kind of a cold relationship overall. I even remember seeing a BBC special on it.
No, Steve, you're absolutely right. And it's one of the reasons why I got together with Kat, who's from Belize, a Latin Central American woman. Sweden is very cold. It's literally cold. It's like 9 months of the year. It's rainy and dark, and the winters get New York cold, and we're by the water, so there's like an icy cold breeze. So we spend a lot of time inside, but we don't have big families either. We have 1 or 2 kids. So we're very efficient, like the Germans. We do well. We're A-type personalities, but yeah, we're not a warm species. It's the wrong word, but yeah, Swedes are not warm. So maybe
culture. How's about we call it culture? Yeah.
So that's very true. And I suspect that's one of the reasons why I was drawn to Kat, who's Latin America, Central America. They spend a lot of time outside. They spend a lot of time together. They have big families. They greet each other with a different kind of empathy and overall warmness, so to speak. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot the question, Steve. But
that's fine. Other ways to connect with people. I think that for me, I look at my spiritual life as one of my greatest assets. And when I identify as someone who practices Buddhist principles, and I tell people, what's great about a Buddhist is that he can go into a temple, he can go into a church, he can go to a synagogue, and he feels at home everywhere because he accepts people for who they are, instead of trying to, quote, convert. No one ever converted me, and I will never convert a human being in my life. But I find that to be one of my strengths in my life on a personal level and in the therapeutic level. So I don't know if you had other strengths that especially help with Kat, who's, again, I look at her as a great human being, but I also think that there's got to be other stuff that kept you going, because it's not an easy task even for you.
I got to tell you, so the guiding principle for me, and it's going to sound cliche, is love. It really is love. And it was Kat that kept me going, the love for Kat. And I know people sometimes have a problem believing it. And I think that sometimes goes back to themselves. And I'd like to prove that by saying that, for instance, my mom, my family didn't want any part of our accident. And Kat's family had obstacles, and they had they were not involved in the aftermath of our accident either. So it was just Kat and I. And my mom made all sorts of excuses not to come over and help. It goes for my sister too. And it took my mom 6 years to finally write an email and say, it was the biggest mistake of my life that I never came over and helped. So, yeah, I started with love. But for me, the driving force is literally, with Kat, it was love. My driving force just for living is just living in the moment. And I've been this close to death actually 2 times too. And I can tell you about my stroke afterwards.
Jeez, okay.
And when I was about to die, it was just black, Steve. It wasn't, this was just my experience. But for me, it was just blackness and regret. It was just regret. And I'll tell you, man, and I get goosebumps, that regret is the worst feeling in the world. And as you said about your own, how you approach the world, you don't want any regrets. And that is the best way to treat it, because those minutes right before you think you'll die, that's a lifetime. It's a lifetime. And it's just, yeah, so I live now as if every day was the last one. I really do.
That's good. And I think that's why, like, I love the word love is so important. Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And when people say, it's cliche, or what does that mean, or whatever, and I don't know if I believe in that. And I'm like, I didn't ask you to believe in Santa Claus. I asked you to believe in love. And if you said the goosebumps, I had a similar feeling when you said that. I had like a lot of like crash when you said about your stroke. You can't touch it, but that's love. And I know that, sorry, I'm going to be culturally inappropriate here, but Americans are so fucking scared of the word love.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem saying I love you to you, because in French, there's no actual word for like. When you say I like someone, there's no such thing in French. So for me, you love or you don't. There's no middle ground really in regards to that. And I don't think that and maybe I'm not close to anyone, but I don't hate people I love, because that's all we have.
Well, I mean, let me love. I call everyone a brother right now. I think I called you a brother when we conversed, and I don't even know you, but that's how I choose to see the world, right? I choose to see you as a brother. And when it comes to the Air Force or the military, well, the Air Force in particular, they have a thing called the wingman. So when you're in the Air Force, you have your team, and they're called your wingmen, and they're supposed to help you if anything happens. And God knows they helped Kat. Like, they were there, and they're still there for us. Like, we can call up any general or anyone we want, and they'll help us. And it's a lifetime commitment, and it's real. I mean, there's a reason why people are in awe of the military. That's one of the reasons. There's a strong, strong brotherhood. And what is that if not love? I mean, you can change the word, but it's the same thing. Like it's what you do, right? I'm a big believer in doer. You can call it what you want, but you are what you do. What you say doesn't really matter for me. But military people, personnel, contractors, they do, and they prove it by their doing. So
I was wondering about your military background when you came on, because you were like 5 minutes early. And I always remember my military personnel, they tell me 3 minutes early is just on time, and on time is late. And they have that mentality for their brotherhood, their sisterhood constantly. And I truly respect that. So that's why when you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, military stuff. I'm a big fan. I work with a few military people myself. I truly enjoy it. I have a lot of respect for the military.
I was in the Air Force in Sweden, but it wasn't.
See, I was right. I knew it.
Yeah. We're a little bit like Israel, though. We're a small country, so it's in Sweden and Israel, it's mandatory to do some sort of service. But I think it's more respect, Steve. I try to be respectful of people. Like, that's part of the brother, and just how I approach life and how I approach people now. Right? You took your time to talk to me, and I want to be respectful of your time, and you just try to do your best every day, right? Yeah, so that's Kat. So it took her a while sorry, I'm going back to Kat, but it took her a while to reach this place where she was able to take on a full-time job and educate herself to a therapist and so forth. But yeah, she's back on her horse now again, man. She's back doing stuff that she did before the accident. So
there's no apologies to be had, just for the record. I just want to make sure you know that. The other thing too is that with everything that you've been through, was there a process through your own mental health therapy in regards to that? Have you been in therapy?
Good question. Thank you for asking. The short answer is no, I have not.
Okay.
And I did the first 2-3 years after the accident. I was convinced I was going to die out of stress. That was what I thought was going to kill me. I had this constant ache in my stomach. And in hindsight, it would probably have been good to talk to someone. But when you're alone with a wife, you have a broken neck yourself and you've lost all your weight, you're your skin and bones, me. You have a wife who's paralyzed, neck down, who's constantly screaming from the depth of her soul that she wants to die. It's just pure hell. It's just hell. You yourself are trying to just survive the day. Literally survive the day. And the first 3 months I had a halo on, which is a metal monster that fixates your head to your spine. So I moved like this, and I drank like a bottle of whiskey every night just to be able to sleep, because you can't take this halo off. So I just basically drank myself piss drunk, just be able to sleep. You wake up and, here's my wife. She's still paralyzed. So it was and then she screams that she wants to die. And it's just chaos. You live in this turmoil. You walk through the valley of death every day. So it was 3 years of that. And then once I lived through that or learned how to live through it, then I had the tools. So the tools for me I had some free time because I had to heal. So I walked the beach with my halo and listened to podcasts. And so I listened to everything so back then was Jordan Peterson sort of started to become not famous, but he had his university lectures for his students. So I listened to all of those. And he also had some biblical stuff online. I listened to that. I listened to 600 episodes of Joe Rogan, not necessarily because of Joe, but because of the variety of guests, right? And then I listened to Rich Roll, listened to a couple of other psychologists, therapists, a couple of female ones. So that combined gave me the tools. I picked a little bit from Jordan, picked a little bit from some of Rogan's guests, and I just made myself a tool set. And one thing was I gave myself 3 seconds to get out of bed in the morning. And if I didn't get out after 3 seconds, I would just shoot myself. Literal. I knew I was going to die. If I don't get up, if I stay in bed, then I'll never get up. Because I just wanted to sleep, right? So I guess I picked my tools. And in all honesty, what has helped me a lot are these conversations we're having right now. I'm so honored and privileged and thankful that I'm able to talk to you, to Lisa, to other therapists. That in itself is a great help.
The honor's all mine, Pavel. I truly believe that. I think that one of the things you mentioned is not going to therapy, but in hindsight, you probably should have. I think that what I love about your message there is that we try to do it on our own. We pick up some tools, but hey, if I can get extra support and if I had the energy to get the extra support, that probably would have been beneficial to me. So that's what I heard you say, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Kat went to therapy. We had a therapist at the VA. She was there for 4 months, and she has continued to see therapists, which is important. She's in obviously a much worse position than I am. So from all aspects. So she continues and talks a lot about it. And yeah, well, I do too. I guess I do too, right? We're talking right now. So in some way, shape or form. So
yeah. And I think that's what I see. Therapy. I tell people therapy can elevate you and just improve on the tools you have. Sometimes I don't go to therapy every week. I've been in therapy on and off for 15 years. Right now, I see my therapist every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. And sometimes we got nothing to talk about in a good way. And sometimes we have a lot to talk about, and that's a good thing too. And I think having someone to talk, for me, one day in my dreams, someone's going to look around and say mental health is as important as physical health, and they're going to see it equal. That's my dream in life. And once we get to that point, I'll find something else to do.
Yeah, Steve, just at large, I feel like the mind is everything, right? The mind and mental health there's nothing else. That if you can control your mind or kind of work with it and be friends with it, you can do anything, right? Be strong for Kat, be strong for Kat, be strong for Kat. As my neurosurgeon said, she had never seen anyone heal up as fast as I did. So from the broken neck, I healed up 1 month in advance. And so she took off the halo a month in advance. And she had never seen that. And I totally dedicated that to the mental mental fortitude, just telling my body to, sorry, fucking heal up so I can be there for Kat. Just heal up. And I did. So if there's just this opportunity for your body to do it, you can really will yourself to do it. And same goes with everything else. You can will yourself to be positive in the morning. I mean, I'm not going to preach for you, but literally I wake up and I will myself to see the world in a positive light. And that really affects my whole day.
Our views of the world is so important. I talk about that with a whole lot of people, is that if you don't, life to me is how you perceive it. If you want it to be dark and bad and everything, it's going to be dark and bad and everything. And if you want to see it as a positive thing, you can see it. And everywhere in between. I'm a bit in between type guy personally. Not quite positive, not quite negative. I like to be a little in the middle ground. And I think that that's a lot of my work with trauma that's really done that for me. When you're going through all this, we have a lot of trauma. And you talk about the strength, the fortitude and all that. How else can we heal from this trauma in general?
For me, what I cherish the most right now, as you've seen, is the connections, like people, just hanging out with people. And I truly believe that is the biggest gift we can have. If you can surround yourself with a few good friends that know you, like know your heart, and you can be yourself, not have this clown mask on, and you can joke and they can call you out on your bullshit if you start bullshitting or your ego starts getting away a little bit. I don't know a better feeling. I mean, I have yet to discover a better feeling than being yourself with people who really know you. Like, the money doesn't do it for me. The sex definitely doesn't do it for me. And all other aspects have not done it for me, but just hanging out and having a conversation like we have, or just chilling with people that respect you. Maybe that comes into it too. They respect you for what you are and who you are. It's everything. But obviously that respect and who you are comes through a lot of suffering and what you've done and so forth. So that leads me into a different path. But there surely is a blessing in trauma, or at least for me, there was a huge blessing in my trauma, in the sense that I tell people that if it was only me, if we take Kat away from this incident, I would not want this accident to be undone. I would want it to happen because it made me a better person. And it made me see life. And I'm sorry if I'm preaching, but like,
don't be apologetic here.
This other Pavel would have died unfulfilled and safe. This Pavel right here is adventurous, and he'll die fulfilled as he can be. And it's a huge difference. I mean, it really is a huge difference. No matter what happens on the other side, this Pavel will die. My mantra is hookah hey, actually. You reminded me now. It's always live so well so you die with a smile, loosely translated. Native American.
Hookah hey?
Hookah hey, yeah. It's a sort of a war cry from the Native American, from the tribes. So that's it. I really try to live as well as possible so I can die with a smile, because I know how it is to not die with no smile. So again, it's the connections for me. It's people. Like, I could walk out of here naked, literal naked, with no clothes on, have no money, no nothing, and still be fine, because I respect myself. I respect what I did. It's not that I don't know what I did for Kat or for myself. I understand it. And that in itself is also golden. It's part ego, but it's like, it came through suffering. I had to fight for it. And I know how hard I fought for it. So I guess, yeah, I'm rambling now, Steve. Sorry about that.
No, you're not rambling. I think that people need to hear that, because to me, we need money to live, especially in westernized cultures. And I get that. But I've said to people, like, you can have $1 billion. When you go to bed, it's not going to keep you warmer at all.
Right.
You can have sex with 500 women on the same night, and they can all be in the same room with you. And I say women, men too. It doesn't matter. Right. I'm not trying to be a gender bias here. I'm just saying. But you still have to fall asleep alone with your own thoughts.
Yeah.
And to me, if you can go to bed and wake up and feeling like you've connected, accomplished something, that means a whole lot more than making $1 billion or having sex with blank amount of people. To me, anyway. I don't know if you agree, but that's how I.
No, 100%. And I do yoga. So once or twice a week, I do yoga with my physical therapist. And she's big into Buddhism too. And she has a lot of billionaire clients, not millionaires, billionaires. I mean, It's just unfathomable how much money that is. And she hears the same thing from all of them. Like, is this it? Like, is this really it? They can buy anything in the world and they're still very unfulfilled. And at one end, we have a lot of suicides in Sweden, actually. It's cold and dark, but it's also like we all reach sort of a high level with the family and our Volvo, and we all make sort of decent money. And we all ask ourselves, is this it? So you better start treating yourself from those inner values. You better start putting some emphasis on those. Otherwise, your life quickly will be empty.
And I'd rather have a life where you said naked, but fulfilled, than have the best clothes in the world and be miserable. I'll take that any day of the week. And you said something else that really struck me, and I want to talk about it a little more. It's strange to think about it. Is trauma a blessing? And to me, it can be for some people because it gives them that wake-up call to do what's right. Because right is being there for you, being there for the loved ones, being there for people. I'm not taking, if there is another side, I'm not taking $1 billion onto the other side. I'm not taking all my business conquests. I'm not taking anything on the other side. And I don't know, I think it's something that I want to ask you. So can trauma be a blessing in some weird way?
Yeah, definitely for me. Trauma was 100% the best thing that happened to me. I do realize that it's a tough sell to go to people and say, break your neck, your neck to like experience this. But you as a therapist, and I'm sure there's tools and ways and shapes and forms to achieve this without breaking your neck. And I've been a little bit into martial arts before. And for me, that's one way of achieving sort of not this level of trauma, but still there's trauma in the sense that you have to really face yourself, because facing another person in the ring really puts yourself on point. Like it's scary. I mean, I'm not a weak guy. I'm a sort of semi-tough guy, but I got literally physically, mentally beaten up so many times, and Krav Maga was my discipline. It shows you who you are for sure. So there's a way of incumbing trauma on you in a safe manner, I think, which will make you grow. So I think martial arts is one way. I'm sure you know tons of other ways without breaking your neck, so to speak.
Interesting that I'm going to just get off a tangent here. I was like, what's his link to Israel? I was like trying to figure out. Now you said Krav Maga, and I'm like, all right, got it. Great discipline, for the record. And if people want to look it up, that's an amazing discipline. I give it a lot of credit. And it's not, people will think about combat. It's a lot more than combat. It's not singularly combat. So I really recommend Krav Maga for people. And the other thing I was thinking about is, I think that for me, one of the first things I remember is I had 3 clients die in 10 days when I was working in a social service agency. Wow. And all different causes. And I'm not really going to get into that. But I remember going, that vicarious trauma you live as a therapist. And at the time I identified as an atheist mostly. That's really what, going to therapy, telling my therapist, saying, I don't care what you believe in. You can believe in nothing, but that's a belief system. And you got to stop thinking that the belief system is such the devil that you cannot have one. And it really changed, like you said, trauma, a blessing. I think that loss was a great wake-up call to embrace whatever spirituality. And again, I don't want people to say Steve's pushing blank. No, not believing something is a belief system, in my opinion. What are you going to do if it's all done after this? And you got to live those belief systems, because you cannot live life just seeing client after client or taking picture after picture or doing video after video. It's not enough. Right. You can't do that. And that's just my 2 cents. And I think that once we have a loss or a trauma, whatever you want to call it, I think it's that wake-up call that a lot of people need. So it can be a blessing. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah,
goosebumps from your speech, Steve. Yeah, no, I really think it's well put. I mean, I think it really puts you, like, it's going to sound like cliche again, but it puts you in contact with God or a higher divinity or whoever created the universe. It just puts you in contact with something bigger than yourself. It really does. And you can feel it. That's what trauma does. You can feel that you're in tune with something else. And you can also feel that you better live, sir. You better live, and you better do it now, because this will end. And hopefully there will be something else, but it won't be in this shape or form. I think we can all agree on that. And even if we don't agree, that doesn't matter. Why would you waste this life? And yeah, I'm not going to go down the religious path, but if there's something I wish for everyone is to not pray for an afterlife. If anything, pray or wish or do, but do it now. Like, this is it. Do it now.
One of my favorite sayings that I heard before in regards to life, and it goes with spirituality, no one gets out of here alive.
Right.
And I tell people, I'm not getting out of here alive. I'm hoping I have a few years to go. Don't get me wrong. I'm not wishing it tomorrow, but at the same time, I'm not getting out of here alive. You're not getting out of here alive. So you better have something to connect you to that, whatever spiritual belief system is. So definitely agree with you.
One thing, speaking of the force, what drives you and so forth. So I think people like you and me, or David Goggins, I'm sure you know who it is. He's an easy example. He used to be super fat, and he willed himself down to a good weight, and he's a Navy SEAL, and he's got the world record in push-ups and pull-ups and all kind of. He's an Army Ranger and Air Force TAC-P and something else. He's the only one who's got the special forces, all 4 disciplines. But so I see him every day doing his physical exercises, and I think he needs to do that just to continue living. He needs to do that, and so he voluntarily finds the suffering. And I do the same way, and with Kat, in the sense that other people helped us, not our family, but other people helped us. So now we help them. And when they're helped, we find other people we can help. So we find the suffering, and that keeps you going. So if you have a higher goal like that, because there's so much pain in the world, and you know that. So you can always find pain. It can be physical pain, mental pain, and you can always help someone, and they'll just keep you going. Because if I learned something, and you can talk religion, and you can talk theology and whatever you want all day long, but pain is real. Like, physical pain is real. If I slap you in the face, you'll feel it and you'll react. And there's mental pain that can be much tougher than the physical pain. So you can always find pain, and you can try to do something about it, and that will propel you, or at least propels me.
It propels me in regards to different things, because, the empathy you can have, just, you said you had goosebumps. I don't know if I had the necessarily same goosebumps, but I feel this connection with you, and that empathy. You're not going anywhere. If you don't have empathy in life, even just for yourself, if that's the only thing you have, at least you have it for yourself. You need that stuff, or else you're dead. In my opinion, you could be physically alive, but you're dead.
Yeah, Steve, you're so right. And just let me take this opportunity to, just so people understand, I wrote a book about this, and I just want to really just explain that it took a while to realize this. It took me a while to be a good person, empathetic. It was up until the point where Kat really looked at me, or looked up at me from a wheelchair and said, "What if this was you? What if this was you?" And that switched me. I told myself I was going to be strong for Kat and help her, fine. But during those first 2 years, I still had my dreams. They were still lurking. I don't want to call it devil, because that's not it, but they were still lurking. There's look, I have my mobility. I can go back to my normal life. All I have to do is go out of here and do it. And then she looked up at me and said, "What if this was you?" And it just switched everything for me. It was just those 4 words. And then I became the most empathetic man there is in the world, because what if that was me? What would I want her to do for me? So, and it's easy. So we had those sort of moments in every 2 years, something happened that glued us more together, or we gained more understanding for each other, so to speak, because we're only humans, right? You always think something's better, something's shining over there. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, the shiny thing that you see might only be a piece of aluminum foil under that you're going to grab instead of gold or what have you. So,
right.
just for the record.
Yeah.
So you talked about the book. Did you mention the title of the book?
True Love and Suffering. So a caretaker's memoir of trauma, despair, and other blessings. What I found, I tried to be really honest and describe the journey, all my failures, even when I betrayed Kat, in the sense that when she was released from the VA or the day before, we sat around a big oval table with generals, doctors, neurosurgeons. And Kat asked, who's going to take care of me? And like literally 10, 12 people in front of her. And I said, I don't want to be her caregiver. So I was 2-3 months in, I was being strong for her, but mentally I was not ready to take care of her for life. And that crushed her. And so I try to be honest about that, my own shortcomings. And I also try to elaborate and describe how I gain strength and how you, the reader, can gain strength and resilience and hope and love by reading it. A lot of it through connection and a lot of it being honest. So, yeah.
And I think that's what we have in life, connection. And I hope people go and get the book. Where is it available?
Amazon is the easiest way. So, True Love and Suffering, Amazon. Click, you'll find it.
I will actually link it in the show notes.
Thank you.
Is there any other way that we can communicate with you, reach out to you, or?
TrueLoveTheBook.com has the most recent info, but TrueLoveTheBook.com is a good place to start. And I do respond to most emails, and I'm grateful for everyone that reads the book and reviews it. And it's funny, I've gotten so many emails from people that have gained strength in their marriage between, like, you wouldn't think they're not trauma victims per se, but they've just understood what makes it tick, like what makes a better life. So I appreciate that. It's really good. It's good to help. Well, obviously, Steve, you're a therapist, but there's no better feeling, man.
No, there is no better feeling. I hope people go and get the book. I will link it in the show notes. I will link your website in the show notes. But Pavel, on a personal note, I got to tell you this. It's a touching story. This was in very many ways, in a good way, in an intense interview. And I was thinking about how we've been trying to connect for about a month now. People don't know all these things, but we were due to talk to each other, I think, because between at one point, such a generous guy, like, oh, I'll be on vacation, but I can talk. And I'm like, no, take your vacation. We'll do plenty of time. And of course, then we had trouble finding a studio for you. Then I had an issue with my scheduling. And then this morning you're telling me that maybe the microphone wasn't going all that great. And I'm like, we're going to find a way. We got to communicate and we got to connect. So I just want to say thank you on a personal note, because I really connected to you. I really appreciate you. I hope people go grab the book. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. I thank you for having me. And this was one of the most, if not the most fun discussion. You really, you lured some other stuff out of me that I hadn't talked about. And I really appreciate that. So I consider this my therapy session. So thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
All right. Just tell me your health insurance. I'll send you a bill.
Okay.
Well, this concludes episode 97 of Finding Your Way Through Therapy. Thank you, Pavel. Please go check him out. He has even an Amazon video special that you can go check out. So I hope you do. But episode 98 will be with someone. I'm joining his network, and I'll leave it at that. So you'll have to listen. But it is Gordon Brewer. Gordon is someone I've known for a while. I was actually on his podcast recently. So I hope you join me then.
Please like, subscribe, and follow this podcast on your favorite platform. A glowing review is always helpful. And as a reminder, this podcast is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you're struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, please reach out to a professional counselor for consultation. If you are in a mental health crisis, call 988 for assistance. This number is available in the United States.